Good evening, everyone. The idea of building a better tomorrow through literature feels particularly relevant today since we're already talking about literature and cinema and how it transforms the society. Literature is, yes, a mirror to the society, but also a tool for resistance, reflection, and reform. And tonight, we will explore what it means for writers, for readers, for citizens to use words as a tool for transformation. Our moderator for the evening is Dr. Monali Chatterjee. She is a distinguished academic, writer, and a cultural critic whose work spans South Asian literature, diaspora studies, and cinema and communication. Please give her a warm applause and welcome her on stage. Joining her are an exceptional set of panelists whose work reflects the many ways in which literature and change converge. I would like to welcome Ms. Maitridevi Sisodia, who is a civil servant and a writer whose literary voice combines empathy with activism. Her book, Contemporary Cheerharan, Women Fighting Indignity and Injustice, won the Ukyoto Women Writer of the Year award, and her recent poetry collection, Moments and Eternities, has been praised for its honesty and lyrical power. I would like to welcome Professor Roopinder Oberoi, who is an academic and social innovator whose work lies at the intersection of government, education, and enterprise. She is currently a fellow at the Delhi School of Public Policy and Governance and professor at Kirori College, University of Delhi. Next up, we have Anantha Krishnan Balasubramanian, who brings over 27 years of experience in education and edtech leadership. As a part of the Kalorex group, his focus on innovation and inclusive growth has helped bridge gaps between policy, pedagogy, and community. Together, they bring a spectrum of perspectives on what it means to write, to teach, and live with a sense of purpose and possibility. With that, I'd like to invite Dr. Monali to begin the conversation and take us on to this lovely exploration of literature as an instrument of change.
Thank you, Surbi. Good evening, one and all present here, and welcome to this panel where we are here to discuss about how literature contributes consistently and perpetually to a better tomorrow. We are privileged to have with us three distinguished voices who bring very different yet complementary perspectives from the academia, education, and governance, all deeply interwoven with literature. So as Surbi had rightly pointed out, we have the CEO of operations from the Kalorex group, Mr. Anantha Krishnan Balasubramaniam. We have Professor Roopinder Oberoi, who is the professor of political science from Kirori College, Delhi, and she's been there for a very long time. And our youngest speaker of the panel, but one of the most vibrant, is Ms. Maitridevi Sisodia. She is a deputy collector, which means she's a civil servant and an advocate of social policies. So let us begin our conversation with the recognition that literature, whether prose, poetry, or narrative, has historically shaped movements, inspired revolutions, and opened new worlds of thought. With that spirit, let's dive in. And my first question is from Mr. Balasubramanian. With your vast experience in school education, how do you see literature shaping young minds not only as a subject in the curriculum, but as a tool for critical thinking and social awareness.
Okay. Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Hira sir, ma'am, with your permission, these people are the people, children, जो आप पीछे बैठे हो, they have cracked the highest order examination of this country. So उनके permission के बिना हम session में आगे नहीं बढ़ सकते, sir. ISKCON के members, Shat Naman sir, thank you very much. Ma'am, you spoke about literature shaping young minds, right? And in today's AI world, the previous panel we were talking about AI. As per me, ma'am, literature is not a part of education. It is education itself. Okay. While I say that, beyond examination, literature gives you the ability to see, explore, imagine, feel, right? Understand, comprehend, right? Question and put your thoughts to action. Now, if I take a basic example, ma'am, when I was in college, rather I was in school in my 11th standard, the CBSE syllabus is what I did for my 12th. So in English, there was a book called as, this is a topic called as Love Across the Salt Desert, right? If I'm not mistaken, it was written by Keki and Daruwala, if I'm not mistaken, right? So, which spoke about two borders, but it kind of showed love as a primordial emotion, and why is love important in anybody's life, right? So, when you grow with these good thoughts, when you grow with these stories, right? So you get ingrained what you need to be as a person, right? So from there on, if you see, I am very against negative emotions, right? If I see anybody onto a sad state, I get emotional. I can't watch a movie which has a lot of sad scenes. I always go for a Munna Bhai MBBS kind of a movie which has got all good things of life, right? So it develops you as a personality. It teaches you a lot. You absorb a lot out of it, right? I would take one more example is if you have heard about, I'm sure everybody would have heard about the great R.K. Narayan, right? He wrote, he wrote the Malgudi Days, and he also wrote, what is that called, Bachelor of Arts. Now, why I'm telling this in particular is, this book was written sometimes in the early 30s, right, 1930s, right? It's about 90 years that this book is now, accomplished, right? Even after 90 years, this book holds so much into it, right? In this, the protagonist had failed in his life, in his love. So even after love, he went about, going across different experiences. He even went to become a sannyasi. From there, he found his love again, and he found his reason to live again, and he fought the world and became a media baron, right? So literature teaches you to live. Literature teaches you to love. Literature teaches you to lead life a practical way, right? Literature teaches you to be a good human being. So it is important that every child in today's world has access to good literature stuff. I hope that answers the question, ma'am. Thank you much.
Thank you, sir. My next question is for Professor Roopinder Oberoi. Whenever I have a guest on stage, there has to be an Oberoi. Last year, it was Mr. Karan Oberoi, who had rocked us on stage. We have another rock star. She has had the opportunity to build spaces with young minds, young people turning empathy into enterprise. So my question is, how can social enterprises truly help build a fair and more compassionate world beyond just creating livelihoods?
Thank you, but I'm sure that I can't match Karan Oberoi. I'm not such a rock star. I come from a very a noble profession, they say, but sometimes it appears in today's time of the AI, it's so difficult to hold the attention of the students. So I don't feel like a rock star in a classroom these days, particularly in last few years when the AI has taken over the young minds. But coming to your question about empathy, the concept of social entrepreneurship, which I straddled into about 4 years back, was an outcome of the British Council project that I did for 3 years. And this was a cross-country, cross-university at UK and India, where we wanted to study that, of course, the government is talking about entrepreneurship, government is talking about startups, but startups has a limited focus of thinking about the bottom line or profitability. By putting a prefix social in front of enterprise or entrepreneurship, what we attempt to do is just widening or encompassing the concept of people and planet and profit together. So kind of weaving in the triple P bottom line, where the vision of an entrepreneur is not just limited to looking into generating profit, which I absolutely agree, which is the quintessential for a business model, but going beyond it, thinking and synergizing, thinking about people at the bottom of the pyramid, because there's a very famous book also, C.K. Prahlad's book, which talks about wealth at the bottom of the pyramid. So often the vision of the entrepreneurship or business houses and corporates is focused on the top 1%. Look at Apple, for example. It's focused for the top 5% of the world. Average people or the poor people cannot afford that kind of gadget. So understanding business for the people who are poor and who would also need mobile connectivity and access to education, access to health, access to infrastructure, that is the whole vision and the thrust of social entrepreneurship on which I'm working on, and empathy becomes the backbone of it. It's a user experience, when we talk about business model too, we often feel that is this product going to be acceptable to the model, to the consumers. And when we say empathy, empathy is a roadway beginning from the design thinking school of thought. It emanated from that IDEO's concept of design thinking, Stanford School. And they say that unless and until, and there's a very famous literature on that, Harper's Lee, To Kill a Mockingbird. So To Kill a Mockingbird में एक सिंपल बात है कि अगर आपको किसी और की कठिनाइयाँ या परेशानियाँ समझनी हैं, you have to get into that skin of that person, walk in the shoes of that person. तो आपको empathy वही है, it's different from sympathy, कि आप दूसरे के नज़रिए से कोई कठिनाई, कोई परेशानी, कोई need को समझ पा रहे हैं कि नहीं. So that's the backbone on which I'm working on with my young students from Delhi University, and I'm enjoying it because it's kind of flipping the whole model of entrepreneurship and making students understand, have a larger vision, think about sustainability, think about viability in a larger, gamut of things. Thank you. I'll stop here.
कठिनाइयों का सामना जब एक पूरी संप्रदाय को करना पड़ता है, तब एक डेप्यूटी कलेक्टर ही उन लोगों के साथ खड़ी हो पाती है. And that is what Ms. Sisodia has been doing successfully and contributing equally successfully to literature. So my question to Ms. Sisodia is, since you balance the role of a civil servant and a writer so well, how do you experience or how do your experiences in governance and political or public service shape your literary voice, particularly in addressing the issues of social justice?
Yeah. Good evening to everybody present here. First of all, I would like to express what an honor it is to share this panel with such distinguished leaders from academia, Dr. Anantha Krishnan and Professor Roopinder Oberoi. Thank you so much, Professor, for this question. The question that you have asked kind of puts literature and my role in public service juxtaposes it against each other, but I feel, and it has been my personal experience, that both of them thrive because they are together. I feel that my public service career gives me the opportunity to be a witness and to be a part of multitudes of social experiences that people go through. So when it comes to me, when I write not from a point of abstraction, but as a witness. When I see tribals fighting for their land rights, and when I see a courtroom full of petitions, it's not just stories, it is stories beyond statistics for me. And that gives me a very special opportunity, mixing it with my sensibilities as a writer, to reflect and to, give that space to readers so that they might also take a pause and introspect. As my panelists have already said, from both of them I understood one thing. Sir spoke about how literature, grabs your feeling, addresses the feeling, sensitive part of you. That is what it is. When you read stories of someone that has a different experience than your life experience, it gives you a pause, a very powerful pause that might make you introspect. And from introspection, it might inspire action. So when we speak about social justice, there are all kinds of social injustices that are manifesting in all parts of the world. But what sparks the change, what sparks our journey to justice is this pause and is this introspection by people who are not facing that. Unless you get there, you cannot think of changing the world or changing the society. So I feel literature plays such an important central role when we speak about bringing that change in society. So I feel I'm very fortunate that I have a career in public service that gives me this unique opportunity to be there up close and personal with all kinds of experiences that people are having, and my sensibility as a writer to express them in the hope that it might, propagate a productive, positive social change. Thank you.
Vaishnav jano to tene kahiye peer padai jane te. Okay, and as we can see how literature teaches us to do this empathizing, whether it is from the viewpoint of school education, college or university education, or public services and social justice. My next question is for Professor Oberoi again. Your work with women and grassroots entrepreneurs shows that every change begins with a story. Can literature and storytelling become catalysts for such global empathy, turning local struggles into movements for social transformation?
So absolutely, I'm resonating with both the panelists who are sharing the thoughts with us today. I think we resonate the same thing. Every time when I go to the field, I think there is a story to capture. And of course, there has been a whole genre of movies and cinemas which try to depict the realities and the story, heart-wrenching stories and inspirational stories, novels which have tried to capture those essence of human survival, human bondage, human resilience. I think that's what makes brilliant literature and stories. In morning, somebody was referring to Shakespeare. I think Shakespeare continues to live today because what he captured hundreds of years back is so essential to what we are even today. And I'm reminded of what Charles Dickens once said, in The Tale of Two Cities. He said, this is the best of the time and this is the worst of the time. And today when we are in the 21st century, 2025, I think we are going through the similar dilemma. Is this the best of the time or is this the worst of the time? Because we are in this highly complex zone of rapidity, and the speed of the change which we are facing is unprecedented. We were talking about the AI, the implications on the generation next. We are in a position where we are not able to fathom and predict what is the world going to look like in next 5 years. The businesses we are in, the jobs, and when we are teaching in the classrooms, we don't know what skill set is going to come handy to our students, because unfortunately for very, very long time, education was very narrow vision into creating job seekers. We wanted to become engineers, doctors, civil servants, and that's how the road of learning and very prescriptive type of education continued for ages. But this is an era, and thankfully the new education policy nudges the students and nudges equally the teachers to start thinking out of box. What I personally feel is what is needed is this ability to see the reality, to understand the complex, complicated, interwoven problems of local and global with a correct vision. The critical thinking, the ability to be complex problem solvers is the generation next, and that is what we need to train in our classrooms. And for that particular reason, we need to take our students to the ground zero. We need to acclimatize them to the realities of India. We want to build, Sir was talking about the Viksit Bharat. We all are aligned to that greater vision of making India a superpower, a good place to live in, where there's justice, fairness, equality. But how do we do that? And I think one of the roadmap and the pathway, which I personally believe is, we need to acquaint our students to the realities of the India. And believe me, when we talk about innovation and we think about America, we think about China now as a number 2, but we never understand that India at the grassroots always knew innovation, what we call jugaad, what we call frugal innovation. Because we were so deprived of essentialities, we know how to mix and match and survive. We give the lecture of sustainability to the world, but Indian people at the grassroots level have imbibed sustainability. So there are immense amount of stories. And just to give you a few examples, Lapata Ladies as a movie, Lagan as a movie, Tare Zami Pe as a movie, these are spectacular examples of, or Manthan, Subhe baat ho rahi thi Manthan ki bhi. This captures the spirit, a sense of the struggles, resilience of India. So I think cinema has to become, along with literature, one of the vehicles of education to the students, because we always rely on NCRTs and guides and all those things. But I think cinema is such a powerful tool because it stays with you. जैसे आप अभी पहले वाले सेशन में कह रहे थे कितने आदमी थे. That line is so edged. So मंथन के जो गाने हैं आपके दिमाग में edged हैं because it's so authentic. So that's what I feel. I will stop here.
My next question is to Mr. Balasubramanian. Technology is transforming education. Given your leadership in EdTech and supplementary education, how do you imagine literature being kept alive and relevant in the digital age, and particularly in artificial intelligence-driven learning?
Thank you very much for this question, ma'am. A very, very relevant question in today's world. So before going into how is technology relevant and what are the things, how can it support both cinema and literature, I would like to bring upon a couple of things. Ma'am spoke about the NEP 2020, right? And what are the different things that has to be introduced into the curriculum to make India great again as a Vishwaguru in education. Because if you're wanting to make India a superpower as per the Viksit Bharat guidelines, by 2047, you have to first bring back education which the Britishers killed while they kind of came into the country, right? So we have the best of everything. All the major innovations was actually done here, but they unfortunately got patented abroad. May it be the basmati rice, or may it be the turmeric latte which you drink at the best of coffee shops, right? Which is nothing but haldi doodh, right? So, I mean, as simple as that, right? So, one. Second, I was just mentioning in my previous session that anything which is AI is Indian driven, right? Starting from Sundar Pichais of the world to starting from each and every company, so maybe the Microsoft. The Microsoft whole, the coding of AI is by Indians. right? And of course, the tariff issues with the US has brought a different connotation today. And just understand the plight of the world if Indians come back to India and stop working for the giants, right? Are you going to develop more anything into the AI technology? I don't think it's going to happen for the next 10 years. It is the Indians who are playing a major role there, right? So the government, I should really applaud the government for the current work on NEP. They spoke about something called as VUCA, right? In the VUCA world, right? Ma'am was talking about the world changing. So it's a volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous world. So we use these terminologies for 5 years. So we built policies called as NEP 2020, and the further refinements of the NEP 2020 is now coming in, and we're now calling it a Bani world, right? A brittle, a non-comprehensible, all right? So innovative kind of a situation that we are in. We are into innovations daily, right? What is it that you are going to innovate? What is it going to be used next 5 years down the lane? We don't know, right? So we have to inculcate skills in children. That's the first thing first. Academia the role of academia is now, from a teacher-led classroom to I should say, mentor-led classroom is what is changing now, right? And we all have to start imbibing skills in children, right? That's the first thing I wanted to establish. Second thing, digital platforms, AIs of the world, right? Earlier, for a child in a remotest of village, right, was best kind of book available? It was not, right? It was a privilege to a few who had access to it. But today, with the influx of AI, with the influx of technology, this kind of privilege is no longer a privilege. It is a right of every child in this country to have the best of education, right? So that is the first thing I want to bring into platform, right? One. Two, literature, when combined with AI kind of technology, you bring the multi-sensory learning approaches, right? Today, you go to a PVR, you don't book a normal movie, you book a 4DX experience. Why do you do that? Because you want the light, the sound, the air, the water, everything gushing onto your senses, right? And you enjoy it more. You see a 3D movie, what is that? It's a multi-sensory thing. So learning also is now changing into multi-sensory, multi-dimensional learning is happening, right? So like earlier we used to have the 2D graphs, then we came the 3D graphs, now the 5D graphs. So you can watch everything, the ARs and the VRs and the VIs and the AIs are changing everything completely in the how the teaching learning process happens in the school, right? So one more thing, now the AI clones and avatars. Like for example, we were the first to introduce something called as Maya, right? Maya is nothing but a clone and avatar of a teacher and a founder, right, Dr. Prof, right, which is now creating content for children, right? What content a set of 50 teachers across 5 years would have created, AI churns that content in 3 days, right? You just have to authenticate that content, do some more research and put it onto AI and make it stronger for the child to sense it, visualize it, learn out of it, right? So, I mean, just for all the audience and the children here, just go onto your apps and type Maya AI parenting solution. So, it's a generative parenting solution which is a modern day answer to any kind of parenting questions that any parent would have otherwise asked. In the earlier times, you would have gone to a counselor after scouting for the best counselor for 2 months and going and addressing the problem on a physical mode. Today everything is available at a click of a button. So there are multiple things available. There are multiple spectrums available. It's only of what you need to use it and to what level. That's all about it. Yeah. Thank you.
So, Ms. Sisodia, your book, Contemporary Cheer deals with women fighting indignity and justice. How do you view literature as a form of activism, and what unique power does storytelling hold that policy or administration cannot always achieve?
Yeah. Thank you for the question, Professor. I will briefly talk about contemporary Cheer first of all. Most of it was drafted like 10 years ago. As a young student who was very angry with how the society was treating its women, things haven't changed much, but I think I have managed to transform my anger more into things that I can do. But it's a very pure work, so we gathered, it is an anthology, so it has poetries, diary entries, short stories, containing all the stories of myriad ways in which women face injustice, from gender pay gap to serious crimes and more. So yes, you can categorize it as an act of activism where I used my words to kind of express my angst against it. And when we talk about literature playing a role, and I think it has historically played a role, it has been the originator of activism, not through slogans, but in its power of creating this empathy in people that already we have addressed. So whether it was Pablo Neruda's stories, poetries that rallied, Latin American Revolution, or closer home, Bama, who wrote her Dalit feminist biography in 1992, that kind of gave us a view into a different experience. I think the problem is that everybody has their set of privileges and their set of, injustices. All of us have different cards that we have been dealt. To be a more just society, more equitable society, we need to hear each other out. We need more stories. When we see the minority writers writing in India, it is not just creating, they are asserting their identity, but they are also creating, and through the readers, when we read them, we get to see that what is their experience and what could be done to address. So when it comes to governance, policies can create a framework for justice, right? Because policy has to cater for all. But literature gives every story a face, a heart. And I think that is the most distinct thing that can set them apart. But apart from them, policies, thrive on stories. Policies are, when they are better informed, they are rooted in what is happening in the society. And stories are policies waiting to be formed when we speak about this arena of social justice. So again, they have this symbiotic role, but where governance cannot reach, stories can definitely reach. So I think that has a faster way of reaching. Thank you. Thank you.
This really deserves a major applause, because yes, policies cannot reach, stories actually enkindle hearts. I think that's very well said. Thank you so much. And to continue with what you have just mentioned, your recent collection of poetry, Moments and Eternities, has been praised for its emotional depth. In your opinion, how can poetry often be seen as a personal and introspective power? And how can it function as a catalyst for collective social change?
Thank you, ma'am, again for this wonderful question. There's a saying about Robert Frost, I think, famously said that poetry should begin in wisdom and end in delight. To tweak and play on that, I think poetry rarely begins in solitude, but rarely ends there. When poet expresses, it might be a personal experience, but I think poetry has such a longer bandwidth of reaching, because see, and in today's world, because as sir and ma'am have discussed already, with AI, it is getting difficult for for us to entangle young children into reading. Recently, I was at a reading club at a school where they have formed a reading, book club. And that is what one curious girl asked me, that reading is not cool anymore. And I resonated with that so much that we need to make reading cool again, because the younger generation, all the screens of different sizes are battling for our attention. And I think between that, we have lost our connect with books. But see, poetry, that's where poetry comes in. Not everybody might be, engaged or interested to read a longer prose piece, but poetries have a very easy uptake. You might be scrolling Instagram, you might be flipping through a poetry book. To get someone started with reading, I think poetries might be a good way to start with young kids. And that opens up the, what poetries can do. Poetries can transform the world. They might be based on personal experiences, but they do address collective feelings, loss, hope, identity, and myriads of them. So and historically, again, there is a lot of examples that we can delve into where poetry has, changed the course of the world. Our epics are kind of forms of poetry. Mahabharata and Ramayana, it's a Mahakavya. And Pablo Neruda, Amrita Pritam, all of them have used poetry to, address the injustices of maybe that time, and that has informed a lot of people. Poetries are easy to catch on, so I feel that opens up a whole tremendous power that poetries have.
That was well said, because a poem is often a much shorter piece. It is probably the shortest piece of literature available sometimes. Professor Oberoi, throughout your exercise for the Niti Policy Lab, you have blended data with empathy. How can we humanize policy to make it not just efficient, but compassionate and hopeful?
So Niti was one of the Young Policy Leadership Forum, or a policy lab that I created again in Delhi University, was an outcome because I teach public policy to my students. And this was again during the COVID time in 2020 when we were having online classes. And one of the fundamental questions which often came to me is that where is the voice and agency of the youth in policy making? Because we always hail as India as a young country, 65% of our population is youth. So a very fundamental question about democracy and deepening of democracy in that sense, that who are making policies for us? It's a very valid, profound question which was thrown to me in my classroom, that ma'am, how can we engage in the policy? We are an important stakeholder. And the policies don't capture our vision, our mandate, and our desire. It's silos, it is the bureaucratic steel frame, sorry, yeah, to use that word, yeah. And the inertia is against change, it is status quoist, So through that, what we did was to blend what you were talking about, ma'am, that how do you bring in stories of the common people, or the voice and the agency of the common women, of the farmers, of the youth, into policy making. So we do this kind of experimental deep diving, and deconstruction is one of the words which are used today: discuss, debate, and deconstruct. And Derrida, one of the thinkers of, the sociological thinker, who talked about let's deconstruct. Who tells us what is good and bad? What is this hegemonic understanding of what is bad and what is moral or immoral, So we need to engage with this conversation with this Gen Z, which we often hail and talk about as the future of India. But again, we shut them up at some point that, aap ghar mein dekhiye. The training we give to our, in our classroom, aap bacche ho, bado ki baaton mein mat bolo. And that is where we are killing the instinct of the child to get engaged in even small decisions of where we are going to go for dinner. So that is at hiatus. That's the gap that I wanted to bridge. So statistics is important. The rationality of modeling the policy is very important, but I think engaging where common people own up the policies which are made by them is the bulwark of effectiveness and the implementation plan of policy.
So let me just add in to what Dr. Saab just said. See, if you want a brighter future, we have to, one, preserve our culture and continue with the innovation. So it has to be a combination of both. So we, being in the school education space for 30 years, we collected a lot of data across the last 30 years, right? So about 5 years down the lane, when we kind of, when NEP was kind of brought into picture, we rehashed about what are the further changes that can be brought in. So what we saw was a gap is the parenting styles have changed across years, right? Today, the parent is not able to relate to the child the way your
सर हम
parent.
जो करना चाहते हैं वो कुछ और है.
So
हम कह रहे हैं हमें इंजीनियरिंग समझ ही नहीं आती.
thought it is important for us to bring back the parenting styles as per the modern age. That's why we came up with Baby Steps to Big Dreams. Now, this book, ladies and gentlemen, happens to be the best-selling book under family and relationships, and is the only book to have ever attended United Nations. And this book has done 6 United Nations sessions till now, right? Now, further on, when we kind of captured more data, we found that with the influx of social media, right, a lot of social media stuff is happening, and with AI coming in, children are spending humongous amount of time, 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours on social media, without even knowing whether they're supposed to be there or not, right? There are countries which have banned the use of social medias below the age of 13, which is Australia. There are countries like Denmark, Belgium, Germany, which don't let people less than 16 go. Here, any 10th grader or any 10th year child can also say, I'm 19 and I can go into social media. And the resultant issue is multifolds: fear, anxiety, right? The stress, then enmity. What was the case of Ahmedabad, the one child killing the other child in one of the senior schools of Ahmedabad about 10 days back, right? Where does this crop up from? So we thought about writing a second book called Safe Teen Steps, which talks about safety of teenagers in the internet world. Now, this book was launched by an Indian ambassador along with the MHRD secretary and the CBSE secretary about a year back. And the moment these gentlemen went through this book, they said it's very important to bring it into the society in the form of curriculum. While you convert into curriculum, we'll work on parenting sessions. So we made literature and policy combined together, and CBSE has bought something called as a parenting calendar, when principals of different schools go to other schools to train people on the right styles of parenting, and books like these becomes handy, right? And this book is being used as a Bible with over 50,000 schools in this country today. So that is how you can really bring policies and literature together in a cohesive platform and make this country great again in the field of education.
Thank you, sir.
Ma'am, I have, our company has kind of sponsored these books to people here. So we are carrying a few copies. These are all complimentary copies. Anybody wanting to take this book, you may feel free to meet my colleague who's standing here. So you can take the copies before you go back home. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So with literature, we have public policy on one hand, social change on the other, and school education as well. The panel is now open to questions from the audience. Yes. Please.
Hello. Yeah. So my question is to Sir. Sir, as a student, I have seen the document of NEP and I agree it has some spectacular things. But sir, as per my experience, don't you think like colleges these days only partially implement the NEP and in some cases just mention it in the prospectus to just get more marketing? So what do you think is the reason for this limited reach? Even after 5 years.
You said sir, so I have taken the mic in my hand, but actually this question should be to a professor of a college. But nevertheless, let me give you an answer from the Catel perspective, and then she can add on from the pre-university, the university perspective. Now, look, what we did, I'll tell you, sir. When NEP was introduced, 2 years we waited for NEP to be rolled out across schools. My job is to go to different places in this country and train the principals on the best part of NEP and about safe parenting and about digital safety for children, right? So across over the last about 2.5 years, I would have met more than 50,000 stakeholders in education. So I would have, I along with my MD and CEO, we would have gone to about 180 odd cities where we have done presentations of such kind to more than 300, 400 every particular city, right? Audiences per particular city. So we found that there was a huge amount of gaps in understanding NEP implementation, right? So what we did is 2 years back, we came back here in Ahmedabad. We called 150 top schools of the country, put them into a room for 5 days and said, thoroughly, chapter number 1 to 8 of NEP talks about K-12 school education. So he said, thoroughly bash this out, right? Tell us each and every chapter wise what are the best practices that you're using in your schools and what is the resultant outcome in the last 2 years. So they put all that in the form of simple topics, right? And we just collated and compiled them and borrowed a booklet which we went across to the country and told everybody that here's a 200-page booklet. If you implement this in your school, you are absolutely NEP compliant. Let me tell you, today more than 3,000 schools are already NEP compliant. If something similar can be taken up, we are doing this to whatever possibility in terms of reach that we can do. But if something can be done in the the university space also in the same regard, I think in about 5 years we'll see a lot of implementation of NEP going around. Ma'am, would you like to add something?
I think you've largely covered that. I don't think so. There is a kind of there is a true impel and thrust to implement new education policy. Of course, there is always a status quoism. A resistance to change is always there. It comes from the institution, it comes from the faculty, it also comes from the parents and sometimes students, because we are shifting to a different mode of assessing. There is a concept of, I'm talking particularly of the higher education. We have a continuous assessment program which is weighted around 40% of your performance, not the annual examination. So there is a resistance, and we have moved down to 4 years of undergraduation, multidisciplinarity, exit, policies at different stages. We have skill enhancement courses. We have value-added courses at university. So we are trying to, with full honesty at university, I'm talking about Delhi University particularly, there is a lot of honesty and administrative pressure also to get this implemented and executed. And it's not just a policy which we not want to implement. We also understand the value of doing these essential changes, because ultimately the beneficiaries are you guys, because we are trying to reinvent the education system which is well in sync with the times that we are living in. So there is a whole lot of shift in kind of training, skilling, being a lifelong learner, for example, innovative pedagogical tools, immersive studies which have come into the practices now. So you'll see the impact and the full throttle of it in maybe 1 or 2 years, but I don't see there is a resistance or any fakery around it.
Thank you so much, sir, for this question. First of all, to answer that, how do I find the time? I think it is my playground and discipline. I devote an hour to reading and 30 minutes to writing or reflecting every day. And I have been able to do it because I have this sense of, and like I said, it is my playground. It is where I, unpack. So at the end of a hard day or a long day at work, my hour of reading or half an hour of reflecting and writing something is where I find my peace of mind. So that discipline and that habit now has become part of life, and I'm very grateful for it. So it's not how I find time, but I mean, I need to do it to manage everything and be sane in this, uncertain times. So that is the first question. And to answer your second question, if I will devote myself completely to the literature at some point of time, I do think about it. I mean, I am engaging more and more, and I'm finding more, as I'm writing more, I'm finding more cause to devote my time towards it. So definitely in future, I might just shift to, doing that, because I do enjoy it. However, saying that, I do appreciate the opportunity I have as a part of my career to do. I mean, it gives me a lot of self-satisfaction at the end of the day, because I can create impact, and I do have small wins on the field every day, at least. So I write in English, sir. Thank you so much.
And we need a very reflective administrative officers. So this kind of an insight which you have of understanding emotions and being reflective every day, I think the administrator by design has to be somebody like that.
I did find thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Oberoi, Mr. Balasubramanian, and Ms. Sisodia for this deeply enriching conversation. I do understand that the audience may have more questions, but there is tea, coffee waiting, and there can be more conversations. This was just an initiator of further dialogues, reminding us that literature is the foundation of our life. We hope that you enjoy the subsequent sessions of this evening. Thank you very much.
Ma'am, just one small request that I have for the audience. As ma'am had just about said that she takes about an hour to reflect, read, and about half an hour to write. It is very, very important to be in the space of reading and writing if you want to grow in life. Whatever AI may come, whatever AI may go, but we have to develop as a human, we have to develop as an individual. So acquiring information whichever way and disseminating that into thoughts and putting it down on paper is very, very important. So please follow the habit of reading and writing to whatever best you can. Thank you very much.
It has been emphasized time and again in the panel that, with the advent of AI, we basically live in a disconnect with reality. And, if you're familiar with the phrase brain rot, it's not just a slang anymore, but research proves that it actually degrades gray matter in your brain. So we're quite literally losing our brain cells with more and more time we spend on screens. So I agree with our panelists when they said, that make reading cool again for the sake of saving humanity, for the sake of saving us. So a huge round of applause for this amazing session that we've just had. To felicitate our panelists, I would like to invite upon stage Dr. Satya Singh and Dr. Hiralal, along with Uma Shankar sir. As sir mentioned earlier in the panel, as sir mentioned earlier in the panel, he has brought complimentary copies of the amazing books that he had mentioned in the during the discussion, and you can take them, while you go. So yes.
And one more announcement: after this serious, thought-provoking discussion, there is an entertainment for you people. We are going to play our trailer of Dropout immediately after this felicitation. 2.5 minutes. Just wait and just have a look on the big screen. Thank you.
यार हम जो करना चाहते हैं वो कुछ और है। हम कह रहे हैं हमें इंजीनियरिंग समझ ही नहीं आती।
नमस्कार, मैं हूं आपके साथ आपकी रेडियो संगिनी रंजना और आप सुन रहे हैं रेडियो लखनऊ FM। कभी भी आ सकती है यूपी बोर्ड हाई स्कूल और इंटरमीडिएट परीक्षा परिणाम की तारीख। JEE मेंस की उत्तर कुंजी जारी होने पर छात्रों और
भाई ये कॉम्पिटिटिव कल्चर का तो ठीक है, लेकिन असली चक्कर पता है कब शुरू होता है? जब उसके बाहर निकलते हैं।
तो साल था 1984, 1984।
अपने पंकज ने एंट्रेंस एग्जाम में टॉप किया है। इसे मैकेनिकल इंजीनियरिंग में दाखिला मिल जाएगा।
हमका तुमसे बहुत उम्मीद है। एक तुम ही हो जो हम सबका एक बेहतर जिंदगी दे सकते।
तो कल मुझे टेक्स्ट बुक वाली परिभाषा सुनाना, समझे ना? वरना कॉलेज में मत आना।
नाचना आता है? हाँ?
काश कि हमारा ही भविष्य हमसे आकर मिले और कहे हमसे कि हम आगे जाकर ये बनने वाले हैं।
हमारी पहली सैलरी आ गई है माँ।
Never ever quit.
आज मैं आई हूँ इस खुशियों के फन फेयर पर। आज मैं आई हूँ गुजरात की सैर पर। पतंगों वाले इस शहर ने सपनों को पर दिए हैं। इन रंगीन नजारों से हमारे गुजरात ने हर दिल को घर दिए हैं। अहमदाबाद, यहाँ सड़कों पर इतिहास और मॉडर्नाइजेशन का संगम है। यहाँ आसमान में भी सितारों के बीच फ्लाइंग लैंटर्न्स के रंग हैं। सोलो ट्रैवलिंग में भी यहाँ सेफ्टी का एहसास हर वक्त मेरे साथ है।
रस भर रंग भर जियो रे उमंग भर अलबेला मेहमान आवो गुजरात, आवो गुजरात।
अदालज की वाव से साबरमती का किनारा, यहाँ हर कोने में हमें मिला एक प्यारा सा नजारा। अच्छा, पाटन के पटोला की भी तो आइकॉनिक है कलाकारी, और धोलावीरा के इतिहास को भी तो दुनिया जानती है सारी।
नगर नगर रंगोली रे